Hello, my dearest chess friends, and welcome to my chess lessons online. This is International Master Carmela Ciobanu, and it is my great pleasure to show you today how to gain a diagonal. And I took this example from one of my favorite chess books, which is Aaron Nimzovich's My System. Okay, so the protagonists of this game are Aaron Nimzovich as white against Anton Olsson, and they played this game back in 1924. And it is an exquisite game in how white led the attack, and especially you will see what a wonderful checkmate will occur at the end of the game. Okay, so Aaron starts with pawn to f4, the bird opening, and black responds with c5, and here we go, and we enter the Sicilian defense with a McDonald attack. Okay, knight to c6, pawn to d3. It will be very interesting what white is doing because he chooses this pawn structure. Okay, now white will not allow black to push the pawn to d5. Okay, even if by doing so he weakens the d4 square himself, that becomes black's outpost in the center. Okay, we will be very curious of how they will develop their bishops. Okay, so first the knight, and black decides to develop both his bishops in fianchetto. Okay, this means that if black will open the center, the bishops have the potential of becoming really strong. Okay, but what white does now is pawn to g4, so he starts an attack without thinking twice. Okay, white has the possibility of expanding quickly, just in case the black would develop the knight to f6, imagine pawn to g5, and so white has already gained a lot of space on the king side. Okay, but black pushes the pawn to e6, and so he wants to develop the knight on e7, and probably this will allow white to push the pawn to f5 at some point when he will plan to attack black's king. Okay, for now we have the fianchetto on g2, knight e7, and white is going toward the weak square on d6. Okay, he's threatening knight to d6 check and take the bishop. So black has to push the pawn and occupy that square. Finally, castle, short castle a6, and the knight has to retreat, and he goes on a3, even if in this moment it doesn't look too good to have the knight on the side of the board. It can be repositioned, okay, through a maneuver via c2. It can get to e3. From there it can support f5. It also controls d5, so white will find a good use for it. Short castle and queen to e2, queen to d7, and it's time for white to complete his development. You see the queen on e2 is defending well the pawn on b2 that was being threatened by black's bishop in fianchetto. Okay, so knight to b4. Black does just the same as white did, and probably he's preparing to push the pawn to d5 and try to open the center as we saw. Knight to c2, proposing a trade, but actually what white does now is white is sacrificing a pawn. So is black going to take it? And he does take it. So rook to b1 attacking the bishop. The bishop goes to defend the knight, and now white does a very interesting thing. Okay, he trades the knight and asks black if he would like to take with the pawn. In that case, white can take back the pawn on b6, okay, with the bishop, or even maybe at some point push d4 and stop the bishop from returning near his king. But black actually wants to keep the pawn up, but in so doing he has just left the long diagonal, and subsequently the weak squares on the king side, the dark squares, are really becoming a target for white. And what is white going to do next? Well, since black has left this diagonal, white will redirect his bishop, wanting to bring it in fianchetto, and so occupy the long diagonal. Pawn to f6, black is trying to maintain the position close because he's one pawn up, then maybe he can trade some pieces, get into an endgame and easily win the game. And so he's trying to blockade the castle. But actually, white will be able to open it, and we will see how that is going to be done. Well, black is trying to close the long diagonal by placing pawns in a chain. Okay, so how is white going to attack it and weaken it? He has to trade those pawns. So he pushes even g5. Can you see how white is attacking the pawn chain? Once and twice. Okay, just to weaken them. And so he wants to open the long diagonal again because black's bishop is far away from it and white's bishop has taken its place. Knight to c6, repositioning it toward d4. He wants to install the knight in there and so block the bishop. Okay, so let's see. Pawn takes to f6, queen to g4, and finally white accomplishes his purpose of opening that diagonal. Now the knight is pinned, so queen to e3, also having an idea of a checkmate already. Plus the knight wants to take on e5 because that pawn is being attacked twice and only defended once. Okay, queen to h5, defending the pawn for the second time. And now knight to g5. White is supporting the pawn on f6. It has become actually a passed pawn, and you will see how powerful this pawn is actually after this move, f7 check, and freeing the f6 square, which will be very important. We'll see why. King to g7. Okay, so white would like to transfer the queen on the f file in order to bring it to f6 with a check. And you see if the queen is on f6, there is the check and there is the attack of the knight. Black's pieces are completely uncoordinated. The rooks are not connected. The bishop is doing nothing here, as well as the other bishop. The knight is passive, only defending one pawn. The queen also is on the side, so they don't work together at all. And the king is weak and exposed on the dark squares. So can you see that the pawn on e5 is pinned? So white can bring the queen on f4, maintaining the knight on g5 defended and doubling with the rook, threatening to enter on f6 as we saw. So the king moves away from the threat, but it's coming on the discovered check instead. Okay, so actually now white is sacrificing the queen, discovered check, and when black accepts the sacrifice, now here comes the checkmate at move number 27. White is bringing his bishop in black's fianchetto, in black's castle, and that with a beautiful checkmate. Very unique. Okay, queen sacrifice, and then bringing white's bishop in black's fianchetto with a checkmate. Wow, this is such a special game, my dear friends. I really hope that you enjoyed this lesson, and I'm encouraging you to like this video and share it with your friends. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel and please download my chess application, because there you have direct access not only to these videos but also to my inspirational blog articles. Thank you so much for joining me, and I cannot wait to study more chess with you in our next video. All the best!